a returning presenter speaker. No, so she already presented last year. So I would like to introduce again Ms. Shiva. She's a marketing and communications officer, but aside from that, she's a volunteer for Kada Career, and alongside with that, no, she's very interested in finance. So tonight we'll be hearing about the Philippine Stock Exchange, um, and the things that she has analyzed or explored for us. No? I'm looking forward personally to hear no, from a local, kasi local ano siya, local landscape siya. So yun. So without further ado, no, I'd like to introduce Miss Shiva. So please take it away po.
And thank you po, Sir Yui, for the introduction. Visible na po yung screen ko.
And yes po.
Well po. Good evening, everyone. My name is Shiva, and for this evening, I'm going to discuss my second end-to-end data exploratory analysis titled Financial Performance of PSEi Sectors for the year 2023 to 2024. For this presentation, I'm going to discuss concepts related to net income, revenue, and sectoral indices. But before that, just a quick disclaimer. This presentation is for informational purposes only and reflects personal analysis of publicly available data. I am not a financial advisor or investment professional, and nothing here should be taken as financial or investment advice. As someone still learning, some interpretations may be incomplete or inaccurate. Feedback and corrections are welcome. And now that's settled, let me quickly go over the contents of my presentation. My presentation is divided into 5 segments, or 5 sections rather. For the first section, I'm going to talk about my motivations for doing this project. Why did I build this and what was I trying to figure out? Second, I'm going to provide an overview of this project. What is this project all about and what does it set out to answer? Then third, I'm going to discuss some key concepts which will be helpful when we look at the analysis in this project. And fourth is the data visualization section. What does the data actually show for at least one of the sector? And lastly, I'm going to discuss the process that I have went through for this project. This sets to answer the question, how was this built and where did the data come from? For the first section, which is my motivation. So why did I build this? I have 3 main reasons for this. The first one is a matter of self-improvement. My first project is an end-to-end exploratory analysis of the top 100 US companies. And I also presented it here at the DataMasters. And after that, I was trying to find another project, this time mainly using Excel because I used mostly Python for my first project. After my presentation, someone suggested that I take a look at the PSE website and see what I can find there. I found that the PSE publishes quarterly report and that became the starting point of the project. I also felt that it was a logical progression given that my first project is mainly based on the US, which was quite global in scope. So for this project, I decided to go local. The second reason naman has something to do with me being a visual learner. So the PSE publishes quarterly reports of financial data, but they are separate files per quarter with no consolidated or visual views across sector. And as a visual learner, I felt that I could not at the very least understand or appreciate what the PSE is telling me unless I visualize it. Then for the third reason, which is something to do about sector level analysis, I decided to mainly do a sector level analysis for this project because I felt that doing an analysis at the individual stock is already pretty much common. So I decided to go for sectoral level, and I also felt that an understanding at the sectoral level would help inform an understanding at the individuals. It will help inform understanding of the individual's stock. So as we all know, the PSEi is made up of six sectors: finance, industrial, holding firms, property, services, and mining and oil. Each one is shaped by different economic forces and behave differently over time. Also, I observed that there are charts for the PSEi, but most of them only track price movement of individual stocks. Platforms like Investagram's TradingView and PSE's own Equip show where stock prices are going. What they do not show is the financial picture underneath, whether companies in each sector are actually earning more and whether the market is responding to that. Then I've also felt that looking at sectors rather than individual stocks gives a broader read on the economy, and comparing financial performance against market indices reveals something interesting. This is something that I found in this project. The two do not always move together. A sector can be earning more while its index falls or vice versa. Now that you know my motivations for doing this project, let me provide you an overview of what is this project all about and what does it set out to answer. At its core, this project tries to answer three main questions. The first one is, are companies in each sector actually making more money? Second, does the stock market agree with what the financials are saying? And third, what was happening in the world that explains all of this? And in order to answer the question, we take a look at the following perspectives. So we have the financial side, which is informed by revenue and net income. Revenue and net income trends shows whether a sector is financially growing, shrinking, or staying flat over time. For the market side naman, informed by sector index performance, this shows how investors are responding, which does not always match what the numbers say. In this case, it does not always match what the revenue or net income is saying. Then for the news and external context connects the data to real events, whether it is interest rate changes, global commodity prices, policy shifts, or anything else that shape the numbers. So why did I decided to look at all these three together? So each of these three components show different perspective of the company's stock. So the financial side shows business reality, the market side naman shows investor perception, and news and external context bridges the gap between the two. So what are the things that the investors are looking at in the news, and how does it relate to, or does it agree ba or disagree with what of the business reality, which is measured here in terms of revenue and net income. Before I dive into the analysis, let me go over muna some quick concepts. So we have here, this is pretty intuitive, year over year and quarter over quarter. So year over year compares the same quarter across two different years. Quarter 1 of 2024 against quarter 1 of 2023. It smooths out seasonal effects and shows longer term direction. On the other hand, quarter over quarter compares consecutive quarters, quarter 2 against quarter 1. It is more sensitive to recent shifts and shows momentum in the short term. Then we also have here two concepts which I know they are quite different, but I often interchange them. So we have the revenue, which is the total income a company or sector earns from its core business before any costs are deducted. Then we also have net income, what remains after all expenses, taxes, and costs are paid, from the word itself, net, and it is the most direct measure of whether a company is profitable. Then for the PSE index, or commonly abbreviated as PSEi, it is a number that tracks how the 30 largest listed Philippine companies are performing. One thing that helped me remember then the difference between net income and revenue is I often think of a pie chart, and I put it in my mind that revenue is the whole pie chart, the azuri and the vivid green, and net income is just a portion of that pie chart. So from the word itself, net, it is after all the expenses and taxes are taken into account na. And I also encountered this, and in the financial world, revenue is the top line and net income is the bottom line. Then a sector can grow its revenue and still shrinks if it's still shrink its net income if costs rise faster. Then last but not the least, I want to dive deep into the PSE index. So what is this formula? So At first glance, this seems intimidating, but I believe na when we break it down to steps, the formula becomes more intuitive. So what's important to understand here is the PSEi tracks the performance of the companies under its index based on in terms of stock. So to answer the to be able to track that, the first thing na we need to ask is how big is this company in the stock market today in terms of stock, since we're tracking its performance based on stock. So we simply start with stock prices and number of shares. So in the numerator, we simply multiply stock prices and number of shares. And then, since not all shares are publicly traded, we take account that. So we multiply by the free float. So we adjust for shares that people can actually trade. Since not all shares are really part of daily trading, some are held long term by founders, families, or the government. So the free float factor here is the free float factor of company I to be applied to each security expressed as number between 0 to 1, where 1 represents 100% free float. So 100% free float means that all stocks in the company can be publicly traded. Then the fancy summation here in the numerator, that just means that the same calculation is done for all 30 PSEi companies and then they're added up. Now, let me explain naman what's happening sa denominator. So, we have here P, which means the base total free float adjusted market capitalization. So, this is simply the sum of all the products of the index stocks previous day's last traded price and their current free float shares. So, essentially, same lang siya ng form ng formula sa numerator, but the difference is that we're considering yung yesterday's stock price. Then after that, we multiply the result to the previous index value to preserve the continuity of the index performance. This step answers the questions: if the market moved this much since yesterday, where should today's index be starting from yesterday's value? So also note that this is the same formula used to calculate the sectoral index. The only difference is the number of constituents of the index. So if we calculate the PSEi, we are considering 30 companies since there are 30 companies under that index, but it varies na at a sectoral level. So it depends na ilang companies ang nandun per each sector. To better understand this formula, we have here an example. So let's first calculate the base let's first calculate the base. So we have here the stock, the price, shares, and free float. So the first thing that we do is we simply multiply the price, shares, and free float for each stock to get the free float market capitalization. So this is the free float market capitalization. Then after that, we simply add them all together and we get 303,750,000. Now, we compute naman the numerator. So, for this, it's essentially the same. But right now, we're considering today's data or today's price. So, just the same calculation and we arrive at 311,200,000. And then after that, we divide 311,200,000 with the base, which is 303,750,000. And then for this example lang, let's assume na yesterday's index is 6,000. So we multiply that and we get 6,147.13. So that's it for the key concepts. Now let me go over to the data visualization. So in the interest of time, I'm only going to present two sectors, but let me just quickly go over with each sector. So we have here the finance sector. This is mainly composed of companies like BDO, BPI, and Metrobank. So the finance sector, banks and insurers earn mainly from lending, investing, and service fees, so the revenue and profits move with loan activity, interest income, and losses from unpaid loans, which together drive changes in the sector index. Then we also have the industry sector, which are mainly composed of manufacturing companies. So these companies earn by selling produced goods, so revenue and profit are driven by sales volume, selling prices, and production cost, which rise or fall with overall economic activity and affect the sector index. Then we also have the holding sectors. So these are mainly composed of conglomerates like Ayala and San Miguel. So this sector combines the result of many different businesses. So the revenue, profit, and index movement depend on the combined performance of their subsidiaries and any large gains or losses recorded by those units. Then we also have the property sector. Property companies earn from selling real estate units and collecting rent. So revenue and profit depend on project completions, unit sales, rental income, and financing cost, which influence the sector index over time. Then we also have the services sector. So these are companies like Smart, PLDT, and Globe. And these companies earn from customer use and subscriptions. So revenue and profit are driven by customer numbers, usage levels, pricing, and operating cost, which together shape movements in the sector index. Then last but not the least, we have the mining and oil sector. Mining and oil companies earn by extracting and selling natural resources, so revenue and profit are largely driven by global commodity prices, production levels, and operating cost, leading to strong swings in the sector index. For this presentation, I'm only going to present my findings for the finance sector and the mining and oil sector because I felt that these two sectors sit at the opposite ends of the spectrum, with the finance sector being more stable and more robust against outside events, and the mining and oil sector tends to be more prone to volatility. So this is one of the charts from my first project, end-to-end exploratory data analysis of top 100 US companies. And if we take a look at the left chart, which consists of top financial companies in the US, we can see that all of them have positive revenue growth. And this is completely opposite with what is happening on the petroleum companies, happening in the top petroleum companies in the US, where all of their revenue growth are in negative. So this is the charts for the finance sector relating to its net income and revenue trends. So the first thing that I've noticed here in the first chart is how much of the company's money all go or how much of the company's money went to paying taxes and operating expenses. As you can see here in the area ratio between net income, which is in dark yellow, and the revenue, which is in light yellow. But if we take a look naman at the net income alone of the finance sector, we can see that the net income of the finance sector is progressively increasing for the year 2023, and then it just had a reset for the year 2024. And it's also evident here in its year-over-year percentage change in net income versus revenue. So its revenue here is stable while its net income just keeps on growing across quarters. As shown in the graph, in both 2023 and 2024, the finance sector steadily earned more money over time. Each quarter, the total income from the operations, which is the revenue, increased, and the amount left as profit after expense, net income, also grew, showing that the sector was doing better as the months went by. And the sectoral gains is also reflected at an individual level. So we see here this overall increase in revenue and net income is also reflected in the strong performance of major banks such as BDO, BPI, and Metrobank, which posted higher net income compared to 2023. More information on the current state of the Philippine financial system, including its key developments and challenges, can be found in the report published by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. So here are some of the news that I've gathered here related to the revenue and net income trends of the finance sector. So we see here that BDO net income hits 82 billion in 2024. There's also an increase of net income for BPI as given in this news. BPI wraps up 2024 with record net income of 60 billion, up to 20%. Then this naman is the president's report for Metrobank, which shows an increase of net income's growth for Metrobank. Now, if we take a look naman at the index performance of the finance sector, what is noticeable here is the slightly weaker growth of quarter two for the year 2024. And this is reflected then in the year-over-year percentage change in index performance. We can see that among quarters, quarter two has the lowest percentage change or percentage growth. Now, if we take a look at what's happening in quarter two, so we have here this news from BW World Online. Let me just read it. Geopolitical tensions, policy decisions stoke volatility in markets in second quarter. Geopolitical tensions, climate transitions, inflation, and various economic developments have led to volatility of the country's financial market performance in the second quarter. The barometer's Philippine Stock Exchange Index PSEi closed the second quarter at 6,411.91, down 7.1% quarter on quarter. Likewise, the index declined by 1% year on year from the 6,468.07 finish in the second quarter of 2023. Then we also have globally elevated oil and energy prices in the second quarter from output cuts in the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC plus countries, and ongoing conflicts in the Middle East region, as well as the reduced but noticeable pressures from the Russia-Ukraine conflict have led to volatility in global markets. Union Bank of the Philippines Chief Economist Ruben Carlo O. Asuncion said in an email. Now, speaking of elevated oil and energy prices, let's now take a look at the mining and oil sector. So for the mining and oil sector, we can see that its revenue is progressively increasing naman for the year 2023. But if we closely take a look at its net income, we can see a dip around quarter 3 of 2023 to quarter 4 of 2028. And then for its year-over-year percentage change in terms of net income and revenue, we can see that mining and oil sector started badly for this year and it is still trying to recover around quarter 2 and quarter 3. Now, given that the mining and oil sector's graph is not that great, I decided to focus on searching for news that show signs of recovery for the mining and oil sector in the country. So on a positive note, the mining and oil sector is showing signs of growth and recovery. The Philippines also welcomed its first copper mining project in 15 years amid strengthened ties with Australia. Furthermore, the country is exploring incentives for mineral processing as part of a green transition. And lastly, the Philippines jumped up to 16th place in the Global Mining Survey, signaling a sector turnaround. Then just to summarize lang din the graph for the previous slide, we have here in the first quarter of 2024, the mining and oil sector earned less and sold less compared to the same quarter last year. By the second and third quarters, sales improved and revenue turned to positive growth. However, despite higher sales, profits have not fully caught up as net income remains lower than last year, suggesting that higher costs are still affecting the sector. So these are positive news naman that shows that the mining and oil sector is showing recovery. So we have here again, Philippines welcomes first copper mining project in 15 years amid strengthened ties with Australia. So the Philippine government wants to incentivize companies that will process critical minerals needed for the country's green transition, according to the chief of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, DENR. So hopefully this incentive will help the mining and oil sector recover. Then we also have this great news that the Philippines leaps to 16th in global mining surveys, and this might signals turnaround in the given sector. Then if we take a look naman at its index performance, for the year 2024, its index performance naman is improving with quarter 3 having the highest index performance, showing na the investor sentiment is already positive na. So it's having a reversal na of investor sentiment. But if we take a look at its index performance, comparing the period of quarter 1 to quarter 3 of 2024 against quarter 4 of 2023, we can see na its index performance is still not great. It's still negative, but there are some improvements. Then lastly, at this point, I'm going to discuss my visualization process. So for this, the bulk of work usually happens in the consolidation part. So I have to download 4 or 5 quarterly reports of the PSE website. And since the indexes are scattered for each quarter reports, I have to consolidate those. So ayan, that's the first thing that I did is to download the quarterly reports from the PSE website. Second is to load them into Excel and to explore the data structure. Then third is to research financial terms used in the reports. So honestly, there are a lot of financial terms and jargons in the report. And as a newbie, I decided to settle muna with revenue, net income, and index performance since it's those concepts that I understand much easier. Then number four is to consolidate key metrics by sector across all quarterly files. Then five is to clean the data, converted text formatted numbers, and to resolve data layout. Sixth is to build pivot tables and charts per sector on separate sheets. Seven is to assemble the main dashboard and individual sector dashboards. And lastly, to research news and external events to contextualize the findings based on those dashboards. So, ayun, that's it for my presentation. So, this is my second EDA project. So, I hope na you would give me insights and feedbacks. Also, corrections then. And if you have other projects na you can think of na related to finance that you could suggest, I would be happy to consider that. Ayun lang po. Thank you.
Thank you so much po, Ms. Shiva. And so, guys, if you have any questions or feedback, yeah, I think Ms. Shiva is very open to feedback then. Tsaka if you have any suggestions on what you think is a good topic to explore next within finance, as of course, ayun, yeah, may mga questions po tayo so we can go at it one by one. I guess yung first question ni Sir Pepito earlier was, where's the data set from? I think ito yung PSEi, tama po ba?
Yes po, sa PSEi website po. Yung quarterly reports po nila.
Ayun po, thank you po. And then, ayun, the next question is also from Sir Pepito was, yan, so why present a retrospective data and not the first quarter 2026 daw po?
So, this project po kasi I made it last year pa po on 2025. Tapos, I asked it to be presented here. Tapos, ngayon lang po parang nag-fit sa schedule.
Ay, sa amin pala yun. Pero yun po yan. So thank you and po. More of sa scheduling problem. More of scheduling lang po siya. But yeah, I think I remember Shiva approaching us a bit earlier kasi it was a follow-up from her previous one. So di ba last time you used US companies naman. But yes, for sure magandang idea. Like kasi nga di parang ongoing din yung mga happenings. So it would be nice to see a 2026 version din, especially with the current. No, but I think every year merong triggers for economic changes. No, so. And from Sir Brian, good presentation. Next time I would suggest going further than PSEi. What do you mean by further than PSEi? Like US or is there parang other markets po ba na would be nice to explore aside from US and Philippines po ba? Hang on, I wonder, aside from US tsaka Philippines, ano ba yung next emerging or like biggest stock exchange? Ayan, yung data, if you wanna explore. Ayan, from Miss Sandy, I wonder if you found anything surprising.
So, ayun po, yung one of the things na na-find ko po is yung sa finance sector na yung finance sector sa US at saka sa Philippines, yung mas stable siya. Tapos yung sa mining and oil sector naman, yung state nila is the same lang din na negative yung sa mining and oil sector. And for same year lang din po yung first EDA project ko, 2024 din po yun na year.
And ako naman siguro yung feedback ko din, it's nice kasi ano siya, parang you did the entire end to end, no? But if there's a way, parang I think there's a lot of ways to insert like data engineering principles here, like ma-automate yung mga certain extraction if possible. Kasi I think may mga manual processes kind of like you explain na you downloaded things, then you had to format certain things. May mga parang more human intervention. But I think like if this is going to be something na parang ongoing project siya, no, parang some people can get insights or like the visualizations na nag-refresh siya regularly would be a good data engineering project, no, to automate some of these processes din. And so next question po, what are your challenges when creating this EDA since it's a big data from the PSEi?
So since I'm a beginner po, I am not familiar yet with like how to join tables sa Excel. So honestly, for the consolidation, I parang in-export ko siya sa Excel. Then for the joining of tables, I manually like parang look at one screen tapos input the other. So if you have suggestions din po like how to do it much better, parang I would like to explore it din po.
Ayan. And then from Sir Brian, more to global scale, like ayan. So as a follow-up to according kay Sir Brian, yung other markets like more to global scale, we can look at China, Singapore, UK always looks good. Emerging markets are always hard to see. Maybe you can try researching arbitrage. It's a good way to earn money actually. Pag-usapang pera, go po tayo dyan. Ako rin personally, I think feedback ko, maganda yung storytelling ni Shiva. There could be less text on the PowerPoint presentation itself, pero yung flow of ideas and thoughts, like well thought out siya. Parang maganda siya pakinggan. So easy to understand the concept. So that's a good point po for me. And from Sir Pepito, become a stock trader and you'd understand how indexes are used to influence their technical and fundamental analysis. And yeah, for Miss Sandy, it would be good to learn SQL or Power Query to join tables. Yan, agree. So, yes, I think may benefit then to kind of learn yung automation para, the less human interaction, the less room for error then. Also, para productive then, like, as an analyst, the focus mo is more on the analysis and less on the nitty-gritty mga pwedeng automate. I guess just to break the silence, no, parang the last discussion was, sabi ni Mishiva, like, what's the best way to learn? Kasi may mga jargons din, and then sabi ni Sir Pipito, like, you have to learn the hard way, so either through demo trading or real money trading, so it will take time. Pero once that you get to explore it, it's the only way you'd be able to speak the same language or jargon. So yun. Si Mishiva mentioned about the trading code by Jason Cam. So yeah. And then, so I also asked, like, diba parang if we want to try, like, I want to invest on, let's say, the finance sector or industrial sector, like, how do you get the news? Like, may systematic way ba? But then sabi ni Sir Brian, like, don't rely on news kasi it could be people shilling, or it could be the opposite. So, pero di ba yun? Like, paano yun? Like, fundamental ba yun? Or like, do you rely on technicals na lang? So parang like earnings reports po ba dapat? Sabi ni Sir Brian, but one way of getting better news, try official news. So people there shield, but they do it responsibly. And so right avenues lang pala. And then, sabi ni Botany Data, so in terms of like the technical side, so you learn pivot, VLOOKUP, or XLOOKUP. So it could help in for Excel data prep. Because I think I do agree. Excel is very sufficient then for a lot of for data preps. Depende sa size. But you can always start with Excel. It's the more user-friendly. Chilling is high risk, high reward. Fact news driven, low risk, low reward. And also, guys, if you have any feedback then for Miss Shiva in terms of like the presentation and the way she explained topics earlier, please feel free to drop them. Then she'll definitely use that as a feedback for future presentations. And if you want other topics then within finance or outside finance, no, if you want her to explore or suggest to explore, no, please feel free to drop it then. Sabi ni Sir Pepito, like each data insight is processed differently by anyone. So you'll just have to learn to listen to traders who made successful trades from that news retrospectively. From there, you'd get it. And sabi ni Matt, like how did you create the presentation pala? It has quite nice na 3D stuff, like icons, yung mga ganyan. So maybe you can share din.
Sa Canva lang po, meron pong mga template doon for the graphs po. And for the elements din po.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. Kung nag-type pa rin, we'll just wait for them to finish the questions. Ako siguro from someone na parang you're interested, Shiva, sa finance, diba? Like, is it something that you want to pursue professionally? Like, do you want to be a financial analyst, or like is it something that you want to do outside of your current role right now, or like more of a something on the side or hobby siya?
Something na eventually want to transition din into. Pero parang I'm taking it slowly pa kasi honestly, I'm overwhelmed by the financial terms. Like, I don't know where to start. Like, every time I look at yung parang stock charts, like, ang dami niyang input, parang masakit siya sa mata. So, yun. Pero I plan to pursue it eventually.
Thank you. And so for Matt, sabi ni Matt, like what tools and programming language did you use pala for this?
For that po, Excel lang po. Since yun po yung target ko din na tech aralin at that time. So I decided my way po is if may aaralin ako the tech, then I'm going to do one project for each tech. So the first one is inaral ko yung Python. So I did one project for Python. And this one naman po is in Excel.
Okay. And then another feedback from Miss Sandy. So I like that she had a roadmap first so everyone can follow. And then I'm especially interested in the insights, not the PSEi formulas. So that's also good. Yeah, I think for the presentation, maybe hati yung audience then to this is a technical audience pero also very interested din sa insights. But I understand like explained din si Ms. Shiva ng like primer on the formulas earlier. But yeah, maybe we can focus more on the insights then. So yun. And then next would be let me just check. Okay, Sir Brian. So I wasn't expecting anything highly technical on the presentation. So for me, if anyone wants to learn finance, there are tons of materials available free online. Even in grad school, we still use YouTube channels, if you could believe it. Yeah. So YouTube University pa rin po talaga. But I guess yun nga sa like presentation wise, siguro more of maybe 20% technical if the situation really calls for it, and then more of 80% insights, conversation, parang conversational siya. And then sabi ni Sir Pepito like on who to follow. Sabi ni Sir Pepito, if he can give his recommendations, you just rely on them without validating. No, if he gives the recommendations outright. So you really have to build your own recommendations as you validate them. Okay. So parang yes, parang ano siya. You have to figure it out for yourself. And then from Botany, just like we discussed in the last strategic planning session, we should join different communities to better understand the topic involved. Yeah, so I think parang general ano din siya feedback, no? And then from Sir Matt, no, it's so hard to find successful traders since they are calling themselves a guru. Pero hindi naman successful in trading, but they succeed in commission referrals and stuff. So nga, medyo scary din online kasi like if someone can earn by investing themselves, why do they have to sell you a course, for example, or why do they ask na mag-manage ng pera mo? Parang minsan counterintuitive siya. Yeah. May recent napakinggan ako, The Plain Bagel, pero hindi naman siya nagbibenta ng course, pero more of investing basics o mga foundations siya. May mga playlist siya na nag-explain ng mga basic concepts like bonds, equities, etc. So I guess foundational lang siya. Pero marami nga, lalo nung crypto era, di ba? Ang daming nagbebenta ng ano, like, ito yung i-invest mo, it's the next big thing, ganyan. So, medyo scary it was a scary time ng mga 2020, 2022. Sabi nga ni Cardinal, maraming scams and manloloko. Sabi ni Sir Matt, like, stick to macroeconomics and it is enough naman since you have the fundamentals, you have the key to be successful in trading and it's always a coin flip. Sabi ni DEP, that's why we don't allow yung mga types of discourse in DEP, no? So only on the lens learning. So mahirap pa ma-flood tayo ng mga trade signal guru. So nga, ang hirap, parami. As in like parang minsan nag-usap na lang yung scammer nag-usap sa kapwa scammer na lang sa chat. So be careful lang din, no? So parang with money, no? Maraming scams online. FA sa Pro Life lang, alam ko. Personal experience. Precisely, while learning this course or skill, yung investing has no shortcuts, no? Sabi ni Sir Pipi, to learning it the hard way, no? So also with the capital, one can afford to lose, no? So yun nga. Only invest with money that you're willing to lose then, especially for first timers, no? Basta ako, auto-skip pag nag-offer ng asking for investments, yan. Yun talaga yung number one. If they ask for money, siguro better watch movies like The Big Short. Maganda yan. And Margin Call para magkaroon din ng insights about trading or finance. Kung di ba may mga talks na ngayon about yung the AI bubble, etc. No? Like the housing crisis before. Yan. Okay lang naman to pay for courses, sabi ni DEP. Pero syempre, what is hard is yung legit. You have to be critical enough. And so learning the right way versus learning the hard way versus learning the smart way, iba-iba yan. Yes. If you can afford to pay for courses, etc. No, there's always a way. It's different for everyone. Sabi nga ni Mishiva, visual learner siya. Some people it's different for them. Sabi ni Sir Pipito, movies have some fictional stories in them. You'll get the motivation but you'll have to learn them afterward. Yan, so sa mga nag-try na mag-invest dyan, kamusta na po yung portfolio ninyo? Na-scam na po ba kayo? Pwede kayong share ng scam stories nyo. Pero yeah, I think everyone's in this economy, maganda pa rin na you have a thing or two about finance, personal finance and investment. Kasi outside working, we want to be able to be smart with money. And syempre, economics affects all of us din. Ayun, tulog pa rin sa Call Financial yung 500 pesos. Baka tumaas na po siya ngayon. Baka 505 na po siya. Net of fees. I think may growing interest din talaga for finance, no? Because everyone has a few extra naman din, especially if you're working, no? It's a matter of like, ako, first like, saan ko siya ilalagay? Is it gonna be MP2? Should I go for Philippine stocks? Like, maraming options, no? Parang, pero but you don't know where. Kasi it's either kulang yung knowledge or nakakatakot. Pero syempre, inflation, yes. Sabi naman ni Sir Matt, it's a roller coaster, especially in crypto. Anyway, focus muna sa New York Stock Exchange or Philippine Stock Exchange kahit downward na. Hi, Philippines. So, ayun. Yung crypto talaga, may era talaga siya. No? So, Axie, hello. Yeah, sabi ni Sir Pepito, like speaking on investments, no, so start trading stocks, forex, instead of those insurance policies. Especially those starting their careers or on a tight budget. So yun. So again, just to reiterate, no, sabi ni Sir Pepito, for investments, no, it's better to start trading stocks and forex instead of like yung mga passive na investment insurance policies. Like baka yun yung VUL siguro. Please confirm na lang or deny or correct me if I'm wrong. And then sabi ni DEP, what I did dati was to share. No? So number one, set ng personal goal and budget to invest for it. So example, time and money. And then second, you find free courses muna. So emphasis on free. And then the third one, you network with people who might know. And number four, try it out. So invest, trade, or whatever. And then number five, sometimes reflect na. After some time, reflect na. So you realize after those, no, na did you move closer sa goals with paying investment? And yun nga, yun yung real profit, no, the experience, no, like you become better after that siguro. And baka lang ganun yung emergency fund. So I think it's a good thing, no, to learn din. Sabi ni Sir Pipito, yes, no to VUL, etc. Sabi ni Sir Brian, for visual learners, libre siya. So the quick visual guide investing basics. Yan, thank you. Then, yung wisdom that you gained will help you sa next iteration mo. I think a lot of people are interested in finance here. Mga parang earlier this year, nag-ask lang din ako sa GC ng DP. Like, I wanna learn about where to put my money. May mga nagbigay na recommendations din. So, yeah, please feel free to spark discussions then because, with finance, it's all about data then. And we work with data, all of us. Dahil dito naging ako ngayon. Sabi Sir Pepito, passive income hype is getting strong, especially with AI. Actually, suggestion ko rin siguro, Shiva, for a topic. Di ba maraming strategies? Like, if you just go, parang may mga nababasa ako about dollar cost averaging, yung mga strategies on investing, like how does it go over time? Yung parang highlighting if you started at 20 versus if you started at 30 or 40. Yung parang scenario-based, like different personas. No? If person A was a student who only started investing at 30 and then may isa na, very financially savvy siya, he started at 20. Like, magkakaiba yung yung behavior nila in terms of investing, like what happens over time. Parang gano'n. Baka maganda siyang data simulation exercise. And then, sabi ni Sir Matt, pero I comment on what Pipito said. If you want to trade, you can open some demo trading and treat it as your own money kasi you have a live pricing that you want to trade. Yeah, for demo trading, meron tayo sa MetaTrader or broker here in the PH. Also research din if legal ba here sa Philippines yung broker para iwas AMLA if paldo na. That is true. Kasi I think Binance for crypto was banned na yata or restricted na. So just be careful. It's good maganda na may multiple sources kayo. Like if you join 2 to 3 groups and then try to listen if or try to ask questions kung pare-pares or yung recommendations nila is kind of the same. Huwag kayo mag-rely sa isang group lang kasi that's prone to biases din. Sabi Sir Pipito, kindly get hosts who have done it over the years, but not me, please. We'll try po, sir, if we can find successful banking analysts or investment professionals po na mayaman na successful, or at least like somebody who has done it for quite some time po. Baka may mag-volunteer po somehow here sa group. We'll try that po. I think it's a good topic then. On the lens of data, no? Like, the amount of work used to make AI work right now is not really passive. Nasa dulo na po ba tayo ng productivity? Just don't place everything in one basket. There's nothing wrong with getting into Binance, etc. Still, banks will question, but they can't do anything about it. So baka si Mishiva na po talaga yung next successful natin na fine na mag-i-invest, no? So siya rin po yung mag-talk. Siguro let's wait mga 5 years from now, Mishiva. Dips na po sa success story. Pero maganda nga, yung paper trading, yung trading with yung fake money, it's a good thing kasi pag may mga familiar tools, and then you will also learn about yung mga concepts din na hindi nakikita outright, no? Like for example, pag nagti-trade na kayo, nag-try din ako sa paper trade before, like may mga swaps, may pag nag-hold ka ng mga position, may charges siya minsan depende sa platform, or like you cannot always get the price that you paid for, may slippage, etc. So those are the things na I think hindi siya highlighted on theory, pero when you actually try buying financial instruments, na this is not financial advice, pero if once you try, parang if you do it actually, even with fake money, may encounter nyo siya. So it's a good practice din. Saan pwede mag-apply for the plot lang? Mali mo matanggap. So I think it's good kasi na si Mishiva, like very into finance na. So just continue lang po. If you put the effort on it, it will, trust me. Experience got my company up and running in 6 months. Coding the platform alone. Yan. Goals. Sana all po. I think very experienced Sir Pipito. So it's almost 8 na rin pala. So if you have any questions po, Mishiva, drop your LinkedIn. So I think if people want to connect, and also everyone, if you want to connect with Mishiva, please feel free to drop your LinkedIn, and we can connect with each other, no? So yan. And so I think yeah, if you have any more questions, let us know. You can message me or Mishiva or any of the admins then, moderators. But I like this presentation po kasi very relatable siya, no? Finance and data. So I think everyone can understand and relate to both of them. Philippines. And thank you, and Mishiva, she's sharing her portfolio. Thank you so much. Para paldo. And so I think if you guys have no more questions, again, I want to thank everyone here who spent their time then napakalawak ng finance naman. That is true. Not just, yeah, I think sobrang laki niya, no? Parang you can find and focus on an area. Game po si Sir Brian dyan sa quant. May personal, may family, corporate, small, medium, is super lawak. That's true. Oh yes, may WQU partnership tayo with DEP. So if you guys want, if you're interested, if it's sparked interest about pursuing financial engineering, finance, data science for finance, we've partnered with World Quant University just recently. And feel free to reach out to some of the moderators to get more information, to Sir Brian, who's here. I'll check the link po, and then I'll share it then po with the group. For that, I think that's a good call out nga po pala. So it's yon. It's an offline. It's a remote opportunity to learn more about finance. And so I think that's. Sige po, we'll provide the link sa GC, or I'll message na rin po Ms. Shiva in person na lang po. And then we'll share for other people to check din po. Ayun. But in the interest of time, so I'd like to thank everyone po ulit who stayed here tonight, who chose to attend, and I hope you learned something. Let's look forward to the next session ni Ms. Shiva. Again, Ms. Shiva, thank you po for your time and for preparing this presentation. It sparked a lot of interest and discourse among everyone here. No? So I look forward to hearing you again next time. And thank you so much po. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us po again. This is DataMasters po by Data Engineering Pilipinas. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you next time po. Have a great evening, guys. Thank you.